Hi, I'm Michael Bean, and this is a Confidence on Camera lesson for Monday, May 18th, 2020. What is this, quarantine month two and a little bit? So we're still doing free lessons every day. Monday's lessons are on camera technique. Yeah, and so today we're going to talk a little bit about what makes for a good self-tape and just review some of that because, we might as well come back to it every week and do a little bit. And then I'm going to show you some concrete examples of emotionality and frame. This is something that I've been focusing on with my classes lately, is how where you are in reference to the frame can really influence the audience's experience of how emotional you are. Sometimes what is just technical camera information reads as emotional information, which I think is useful for everybody, especially actors who are planning how to do a good self-tape. Why don't we start with, well, I'll start here with the top level things that I look at when I am going through camera technique. And it's very simple. That's eyelight, frame, sound, background, movement. Movement is what we're going to be spending most of our time on today. But eyelight is the light reflected in your eyes. If I was all the way over here and you couldn't see a light reflected in my eyes, then that's sort of the first and most important thing. Where we would look as though I was not feeling as much. Let me see if I can adjust my setup to show you. It won't be a good angle, but let's see. I'm too close to a window. And so I'd have to go all the way back here. See, and as soon as there's not a light reflected in my eyes, or almost none, then we see it looks like I'm feeling less. Clean background. I have a very inexpensive collectible stand that I got from Amazon, a piece of stretchy blue fabric, but really anything, a blank wall is totally fine. Eyeline, the imaginary line between your eyes and what you're looking at, and that helps you tell the story. What I've been saying to people is if you put one actor just on one side of the camera, whoever your reader is, you pin them if you're using Zoom. There's three little dots beside the picture, and you pin them, drag them to one side of the screen, and then whoever else it is you're talking to, you put them on the other side of the screen and use those as your eyeline. The sound, any kind of external microphone is going to give you better sound, basically because it'll move the microphone closer to you than your computer is. Currently, I have an Audio-Technica condenser mic that's USB. It'll take 1 second to reset. This is what my audio sounds like with just my laptop recording. As soon as it, and this is what I sound like with the USB microphone. So hopefully the difference is clear enough that you can see why that would be a good investment if you're setting up for self-tapes at home. It does not have to be an expensive microphone. It just has to be something that you can move closer to you so that you're louder and clearer and the audio is clearer. Now today I wanted to talk about frame size in some detail. And so let's go over this GIF. This is just something that I found online when I started Googling frame size, but it makes a good, clear way to have a visual and make this concrete. Close-up is going to be just your head and shoulders. A medium close-up, which is what we normally use for auditions, is down to about the armpits. A medium shot is going to go down here somewhere between your belly button and your waist. A medium full shot, right, and then a full, right? So close-up, medium close-up, medium shot, full shot, or long shot, is where we're seeing your whole body. And the kind of acting that you would need to do for each is, or the way that you would need to adjust the action for the frame changes for each one. You can see in this example, they've got this person waving. So in the medium shot, you can see that. But if I still have to be aware of where my frame is, what the camera's seeing, because if I'm like, hey, I don't know, looks like maybe I'm hailing a cab. It's if you really want to get the like, hey, it's great to see you, then you might have to get it in here, or just back a little bit further away from the camera. Hey, how's it going? And if you're in a medium close up, here just head and shoulders, then you might have to do a simpler like, hey, it's good to see you. If you're in a close up, well, then probably you're not going to bring the hand in at all. But if you do, you're just going to have to know where your frame is. So you're like, hey, great to see you. We're just seeing the fingers to give me the indication. Medium close up again. So where I am right now, where you're seeing the top of my head to just below my armpits and a little bit of space on either side. Medium close up is the normal framing for auditions. As long as your eye lines are beside the camera, it's okay for you to be in the center. But if you want to like add a little bit of extra, you do what's called nose room. So if I'm talking to Raven, then I drag the window over to whichever side of the camera I want, and then I just move slightly to the other side. And now I can look at the real person while I'm talking, in my zoom window, and there's a little bit of nose room. There's a little bit of extra room in the direction that I'm talking. So when you're setting up your self-tapes at home, when you're setting up for class, it's a good idea to add that next little bit if you can. Now, in terms of I've prepped a couple little video clips as backup, again, just for the review part of today's lesson. Casting director Tiffany Mack, who is with us on, was this April the 17th?
Self-tape auditions. Before we open it up to questions from everybody, can you talk a little bit about self-tape auditions, and what you like to see in one? When you're like, yeah, this is a quality one. Kind of what stands out for you?
Good lighting is important. So weird. I never thought that would be the forefront of my mind, but
I keep saying it on Mondays.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's true. Sometimes I call see. First of all, I have no problem if people self-tape at home. I mean, yes, if you're going to get coached, then go and self-tape with your coach. But self-taping at home on your iPhone or your Android is totally fine as long as it is horizontal, not portrait. Horizontal, blank wall, white is fine, but blue or gray or green is better. But, white is totally acceptable. But good lighting, something where I can see your face and see your eyes and the emotions that you guys are doing. A lot of people will sit by a window, so it'll be half their face is lit and the other half is in the shadows, or they'll be sitting in what looks like a windowless, dim, it almost looks like a motel room where it's just like an orange haze. We're trying to show you the best light literally possible, so be very cognizant of that. Anywhere where you can have bright natural lighting, that's what you guys should do. Like, I'm looking at
And one more, casting director Jackie Lind, who's with us on May 1st.
I would like to talk a little bit more about what makes a good self-tape, because you've seen more of them than certainly any of us have, and so what
thousands
for you exactly, so what makes one pop? Well,
first of all, I don't know if you all see, we all look at Michael, and behind Michael is a blue wall, and you want to have a neutral something behind you, wall behind you, so that, for instance, mine is not a good to self-tape, because what's going to happen at post focus, you're going to be looking at my painting, you're not going to be looking at me. I just want to look at you. So if you have a place in your house that you have a neutral wall. Also, I found out something, and this is something we're going to be putting together. My casting team is going to be putting together a educational video on self-taping, on what you can do and how you can set things up in your own house. And the technology is going to change. I just found out the other day that you can go to IKEA and pull, and just it hooks up anywhere and pull a blind down that's in a muted gray. That's perfect for you to do anywhere in your house if that's what you need to do, if you don't have the opportunity to go and do it elsewhere. You also then could, for instance, you want a good reader, because unfortunately, unless your mom and dad's an actor, they're not going to be the best reader.
Anyway.
Sorry about that, but that's what
details. What we heard echoed by both casting directors, it was the importance of the neutral backdrop, and Tiffany in particular, sort of quickly rattled off some of the extra details. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can take casting's word for it. Okay, on to an example of emotionality and framing. So because when you are close, because when you're in this meeting close up, you can see the light reflected in the eyes so much more easily. This looks like strong feeling. I mean, when you think about it, like when somebody's eyes get a little shimmery, we're like, oh, they're feeling so much. So the light reflected in the eyes is something that gives the audience the impression that the character is having a feeling, that you are having a feeling. And the illusion with film and TV acting is that we can look into your eyes and imagine everything that's happening inside you. We're imagining all the thoughts and feelings. And so, especially when you're self-taping, it's really important to stay close into the frame enough that comes across. And so I asked permission for one of my students on in my Saturday class, if I could show some examples and of his work as a way of talking about the frame. And he said, yes, as long as it's not a what not to do. And so I told Ethan that, I promised that I wouldn't approach it from a, here's what not to do. There was this really just as an example of, here are some different ways to accomplish this thing. So, here we go. Let's start with
action. Roger.
Yeah, let's start with this. Okay, so this was an exercise that we did at the beginning of class, but it's useful for reference because we'll be able to see Ethan in
oh, Mom, still didn't hit me.
A medium shot, right? So top of his head, to down below the waist, and his lighting sort of was not ideal for us. There's not very much eye light. The scene is not particularly relevant, but I just wanted to show you, for the frame, this is what we've got. Now, if we move on to the scene that he did in class,
I think it's good.
Here we go. Thank you for your patience. Getting all of the 4 or 5 different videos all queued up is something that I'm still figuring out how to do in a graceful way.
I think it's gonna work.
If Walter says so.
My dad's not the best at fixing stuff.
Oh, you should probably get going.
We should.
I feel like they need me.
Okay, so it's skilled work. I'll show you the second take just for reference, so that you can see what he did with our little bit of extra coaching. One of the things that was present in the second take was physicality, which we've talked about in this lesson a lot.
I think it's gonna work.
Walter says so.
My dad's not the best at fixing stuff.
Okay, so he's a little bit closer, but notice how his lights are still adjusted such that he's getting a lot of side light here, and here, and so there's not as much light on his reflecting his eyes. And so for the third scene, or the second scene that we did, not only was there more was there like good emotional content to it, but we moved him up right close to the camera, and I believe he readjusted his lights so that we've got a good clear eye light for him.
How are you feeling?
Right, and so right away, even in the still shot, it looks like he's feeling more. And if we were to watch the whole scene, I think it would be even more apparent. But I would say that that's due in large part to the fact that his eyes are just larger because he's closer to camera. His face is larger. We're seeing more detail. And particularly, we're getting this eye light here and here.
Where's going?
And you can see that in that medium close-up, even those little eye movements, because we can see them, become information about what the character is feeling. And this is, I think, where the idea that acting for film and TV is smaller often comes from, is that we're used to close-ups, we're used to medium close-ups, which means that we can see little details. Now, if you're working on a TV show or if you're working on a feature, there are going to be shots where there are medium shots, and there's going to be shots that are long shots. So not all film and TV acting is smaller. It's just that sometimes you need to know your frame, what the camera is seeing, so that you can adjust your performance for it appropriately. I've said this before, but whether you're on a student film set or an independent film set or a professional film set, one of the best ways to do that is to step around to where the director or the folks who are organizing have set up monitors for themselves and look at the shot before they actually start rolling. If you're on a professional film set, they usually have stand-ins, and they will say, okay, first team can relax, meaning the actors can relax. Second team, step in, and basically they will have these stand-ins whose job it is to stand there while they adjust the lights properly and sort of make sure there's no weird angles on their faces and that kind of thing. And while the stand-ins are there, if you're on a professional film set, it's the easiest thing in the world. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to check with anybody. Instead of like walking to your chair and taking it easy, you can walk for a minute around to where the director is and see exactly the frame and exactly the lighting that they're going to use when you shoot it. And it's one of the ways that you can tweak your performance and give a more professional read. It's as though you knew exactly what the camera was seeing, because you can just go look and find out what the camera is seeing. And people are like, wow, talent. And you'll be like, wow, preparation. And hopefully they think that it's magical. And I've talked about that at some length. Our job is to pull the magic apart into its pieces and practice it. And hopefully people still keep thinking it's magical. All right. Let's look at a couple of scripts, and then we can even do a couple of quick demos if you want. So with everybody here, everybody who's here can practice the demos. One of the scripts that I want to look at is from a show called The Troop. So this is Felix the Monster Hunter, the Troop's secret headquarters day. So we've got Felix, a strange but lovable genius. Enter the weapons room. An arsenal of intimidating weapons and complex gadgetry hang from the walls. It's a dork's fantasy. Jake picks up a small object from the desk. Cool, what's this? A communication device? Jake attempts to fix the clear plastic device to his ear. Annoyed, no, that's my retainer. Sorry. Jake drops it. Felix puts it in his pocket. Thanks. So if you're an actor and you're seeing that, I've seen people in class do this scene lots of times, and often they're like, cool, what's this? And they just point at it. And the joke there is he picks up something that should go in the other guy's mouth and he tries to put it on his ear. And then there's got to be a moment where he's trying, he's trying to be cool, but he's also just I just put somebody's mouth guard on my ear. That's disgusting. Or retainer, and so he's like, oh, cool. What's this communication device? Now, if you're in an actual audition, or honestly, I think even if you are taping from home, you want to keep your props pretty simple. Now you could mime this, and this, I've talked a little bit about how when you get physical action, I would say first, try and do it exactly the way it's written. Next, try and adjust it so that it's all below the frame. And then after that, you try and adjust it. You basically make changes to it to see if you can find a version that works. And so with this, we can try it exactly the way it's written. Oh, that looks weird because my hand is empty. Okay, well, I can't keep it below the frame because I'm supposed to, put it on my ear. But what I could do is I could mask it with my hand. So, what's this? Oh, oh, yuck. As long as I'm careful about that, we never have to see that I'm miming, that I'm holding imaginary objects. So probably in this case, I would go with that. If you want to, and then for Felix, who's got to just like take his retainer and put it in his pocket, super easy. You just keep it below the edge of the frame. But the way that you take the object and the way that you put it in your pocket gives the audience emotional information about your relationship to it. If you just say the line, okay, yeah, great, thanks. But if it's like, thanks, I'm gonna put that away, should have left it out. Or if it's like, yeah, thank you. What are you doing touching my retainer? Totally different emotional relationship with the object. And that's what we're looking for in our scripts, is to convey our strong feelings and opinions about the people, the places, the objects that we're coming in contact with. Jake drops it. Felix puts it in his pocket. Thanks. Before we begin the weapons demonstration, there's one unwavering rule about firearms that you can't forget. Never, ever assume. Felix reaches for a laser gun on the wall, and it goes off in his hand. Gah! Sorry, my bad, but I guess I just proved my own point. Got to be a real pro to handle this bad boy. So sometimes it's called a straight or like a straight flip or a flip or a turn. We talked about these in the comedy lesson last week. The idea is that the character starts, as like authoritative, serious, and then the gun goes off in his hand and he freaks out, screams and falls on the floor. Now, the bigger this is, and the more abrupt that transition is, the more likely you are to get the laugh from the audience. And I think that it's very necessary to do the physicality. It goes off in his hand, and does the actor throw themselves back into the wall if you happen to have like a wall physically behind you? You could throw yourself back into the wall. I've done this a lot and just had people like hit the deck, right? If you're in a medium close-up, you don't have to go very far to just be like, ah! But we want like movement in the frame that goes along with the action. So let's look at the script again. So it's, you can't forget, never ever assume, bang, and he freaks out. Now often I'll have in class, I will give actors the sound, I'll just whack on a script, or give a zap or something, and so the person has something to react to. You might not get that in the audition, but you could ask your reader for it. You could say, hey, can you just like give me a whack or an explosion sound or something here, so that we've got something to play with. Totally legitimate. So again, the line is, you can't forget, never ever assume, freaks out. And so if it's going to be in a slightly unflattering angle, on me. But you can imagine, that if I don't do the physicality, if I don't do the like, I'm worried that this laser gun is zapping me. And I just go like, okay, so if I'm, again, talking to the actor again, I drag the screen to one corner. And lately what I've been doing is I've just been using in Zoom, when you go into speaker view, you get a bunch of little pictures on top. And I'll use the little picture for my reader as opposed to the big one, because it brings my eyeline for them closer to the top of the screen. But really, whatever works best for you. And so I'm talking to my reader. You can see I've given myself some nose room, some extra space on the side of the camera of the person I'm talking to. But you can still, I'm not off camera in any way. Well, my head is, but that's because I'm hitting the top of my backdrop from this angle. Normally we would want to do this. And so from here, it's like, okay, one unwavering rule about firearms, just, stern, authoritative, like never ever assume, And if I don't do that, if I'm just here and I say one unwritten rule about firearms, even if I'm doing good acting, never ever assume, if you're just not getting the joke in the same way, right? It's just not going to work, And I would say that in order to really sell this, to really make it make sense, you actually have to place the firearm, and I could either place it up here on the wall beside me, right? So outside of the frame, because it's a laser gun, we don't want to bring it into frame. Even if you've got a laser gun at home or something that looks like a laser gun, you don't want to use it for this scene, right? You don't want like a plastic thing that's going to be in your way. You don't want people looking at your laser gun instead of your acting. You just really don't. So I can either put it up here, right? Okay, Raven. Well, there's one unwavering rule about firearms, okay? Never, ever assume that, right? Or maybe if I was really crafting it, I'd want to reach over, never, ever assume, when I can fall all the way on the ground, go to the back wall, or I can put it here on the table in front of me. Now, my preference typically would be to put it up here because then you see more of my eyes. You're likely to see more of the reaction there. You want to try it? Let's spotlight Raven and see if we can get her to play with us. Raven, you want to try it? So you're going to need to stand up, even though the angle will be bad, much like mine was. It's okay to say no as well. Okay, we'll go back to me. That's just about our half hour today. Hopefully I've made the case for being close to the camera in that medium close-up, and then for the number of small technical things that are foundations for the decisions that you make about how to tell a story with a script. Any questions from either of you before we wrap up for today?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much for making time to join us. This was a confidence on camera lesson. Tomorrow we've got Ricardo Ortiz joining us for the confidence lesson. He's an actor who started training with me at Biz Studio maybe 3 years ago, and he had a bunch of theater experience before that. And over the last 3 years, he's gone from not having worked on film and TV at all to spending several months in Toronto last year as the lead on a comedy TV show. And so I'll be able to show you some clips from class when he was here a couple of years ago, and then some recent clips from class, just so you can see what that amount of practice, and that what he has learned about confidence has affected his work. And we'll get him to talk to us about his own journey with that. So I'm excited about that. Wednesday we'll be talking about story, Thursday industry, and I'm still lining up our special guest for Friday. I'll let you know as soon as I know. Bye everyone. Thanks.